welcome back. This is our fifth lecture. And, as promised, here I want to show you how to solve these in Excel. So, I want to solve the three problems that I solved graphically because I want you to be able to see kind of the link between what I did, graphically and then obviously with Excel. But also, I'm hoping that you see how to set these up, right? So, remember that first one. I'll kind of type it out. The first one was maximize 5x1 plus 10x2 subject to x1. Let's see here. Insert less than or equal to, right? Less than, insert, close, less than or equal to 12, all right? x2, oh, you know what I should do? Less than or equal to 8. That won't have to take so much time. And then we had x1 plus x2 was less than or equal to 14, right? And then, of course, we had x1 comma x2 greater than or equal to 0. Okay, that was that first problem. Okay, so how do I recommend that you set these up? So you want to start, what I'll do is I'll start with our choice variables. So we'll say x1, x2, okay? Now, what I'm going to suggest that you start with is your, like in this case, your parameters. Okay, and let me make this column a little bit bigger. Right, so what's the parameter for x1? It was 5. What was the parameter for x2? It was 10. Okay, and then here would be your choice variables. Okay, now here you could leave these blank, or if you want, just put in a holder, placeholder. Okay, and then here would be your objective function. So if I'm going to type that one out, might as well type all the rest of them. Variables. Okay. All right, so remember, so your objective function is just this. It is, right, 5 times the amount of x1, right, plus 10 times the amount of x2, okay? And to be fair, and to be consistent, I should have put parentheses around this. Okay? Now that's one way to do it. I am going to actually suggest that for your objective function, you use a completely different formula. So, this was 15. What I'm going to suggest, right? See, this is easy if you just have x1 and x2, but again, you can have n choice variables, and you don't want to keep doing 5 times this number, 10 plus 10 times this number, blah, blah, blah. There's a much easier way to do this in Excel. So remember, this objective function, the way we have it set up right now, is 15. The way that I would recommend that you do it from here on out is to actually use the sum product function in Excel. So literally, go into your function wizard, right? That's a little f of x here. Type in sum product, hit go, and it'll come up for you. And what the sum product function does is it mimics just what we did. So you have to choose these arrays. Well, one array, right, is my array of parameters, and the other one is the array of choice variables. And you're done. So just hit OK, and you get 15. So what this sum product function does is it multiplies the first two elements from each array, right, and then adds that to the second element, then it multiplies the second two elements from each array, and then it adds that. And then the point is, of course, if you had like x3, x4, x5, x6, you know, doing the sum product is a lot quicker. It's much more efficient when you have a lot of choice variables, okay? Now, up here I said, look, you could put in ones. You could even put in zeros for now. It's okay. You know, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, so you've got your choice variables. And then, of course, we have to do our constraints, right? So here is constraint. Come on, Kurt. Whoa. Constraint 1. Two and 3. Okay, so constraint 1 was that x1, right, was less than 12, right? So this is just a 1. This is the parameter, right, in front of my x1 in my first constraint. So this is like that little A11 that I showed you from that very first video, right? Notice that here A11 is 1. Here A22 would be 1, okay? And then A31 would be 1, A22 would be 1, right? Because there's ones in front of all these choice variables, okay? So I've got 1. This is a 0, right? And then I've got, you know, strictly less than or equal to, okay? And then I'm going to put, actually I'm going to do that. I did that. Less than or equal to, just bear with me. And this is going to be at 12. And I'll try to shorten up some of these columns just so that we can see more on the screen. There we go. Okay. So why did I leave this cell open? Because here I'm going to do another sum product function, right? So this is the actual constraint. That comes from 12. But I need to know, or Excel needs to know, right, how many units of this first constraint am I using? So here, we're going to do another sum product function, right? So we're going to do, we're going to do here the sum product, okay, of my choice variables and my parameters, okay? So in other words, think back to that very first lecture. This is A11 times x1 plus A12 times x2, okay? And so let me hit here, okay. Now again, if we put in filler, so for example, if the solution was 1 and 1, then we would only have used 1 unit of constraint 1. Just see, that's why I need to compare this number to this number, right? This number has to be strictly less, not strictly less, this number has to be less than or equal to 12, but given how many units I use, right, if I use 2, 3, right, well then I've only used 2 units of the first constraint, okay? So that's what we're trying to do. Now, of course, constraint 2 is just flipped. Here's a 0 and here's a 1. Let me shorten this column, right? And then the same thing, less than or equal to, but now it's an 8. And I'm going to do the same thing, right? I'm going to use another sum product function here. So here's the sum product. Again, the first array are my choice variables. The second array are the parameters from my second constraint, right? This is A21. This number here is A22, okay? And I'm going to multiply that, or I'm going to multiply A21 by x1, and then A22 by x2. So I would hit OK, right, and there. So here, right, if we produce 2 units of x1 and 3 units of x2, then we would have only used 3 units of the second constraint, right? Whereas we can use up to 8. Okay, And then finally I have the third constraint, so this is just going to be a 1 and a 1 here. And again, less than, less than or equal to 14. All right? And then, of course, here, another sum product. And again, choice variables, parameters. And there you go. Okay? So if we produce 2 units of good 1, let me scroll up, 3 units of good 2, then we would have used 5 units of constraint 3 when we could have used up to 14. Okay? So this is how we set up a linear programming problem in Excel. And I want to strongly encourage you to follow this setup. Now, if you have done this in another way, I'm not, if you've done this in a different way, then go ahead and use whatever way is most comfortable for you. But if you've never done this before, I'm going to recommend that you do it this way. Now, the reason for that is I just think this is so simple, right? Here I have my choice variables, x1 and x2. Here are the parameters for my choice variables in my objective function. Here are the actual choice variables themselves. Here is the objective function. And then again, here are the parameters for my choice variables for my first constraint. Right? Here are the parameters for my choice variables in the second constraint, so on and so forth. This just makes it, in my mind, this just makes it very intuitive and very logical for me. So I hope you find it as well. Okay, well, now that we've got everything set up, now it's time to solve it. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into data, and you're not going to find a thing, which is most unfortunate. So we have to bring up solver. So actually, I'm glad this happened. So under data on the far right, you should see solver. I don't, so that means I have to invoke it. So to do that, go to File, go to Options, go to Add-ins, and then right here where it says Microsoft Manage Excel Add-ins, hit Go, and click this, the Solver add-in. That's what we wanted. And this really, it comes with Excel. You just have to, say, yeah, I want to use it. So then just hit OK. And see, there it is. So under Data, far right, there's Solver, click. Okay, and so here's what we've got to do. So Solver says, look, so I'm going to move this over here to keep all this open. So the first thing, it says set the objective. Well, that's just my objective function. Hence the reason I actually call this the objective function, right? So I'm just going to highlight that cell. And then do you want to maximize, minimize, or this value off? Don't worry about value off. We want to maximize, all right? By changing variable cells. Well, why do you think I call these choice variables? So here, by changing the variable cells, well, of course, those are my choice variables, all right? And then I need to do my constraints. So I'm going to do add. And this is going to tell you why I set this up the way I did. So let me cancel. So you go back here. So you set your objective, max or min, highlight your choice variables, and then hit add to add your constraints. And Excel's got this cell reference, the constraint, or the less than or equal to, greater than, blah, 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 and then the constraint. So the cell reference, that's this guy. And this is another reason that I set it up, because what this 2 is, remember, this 2 changes. This cell right here, in fact, all 3 of these cells change when the choice variables change. Okay? You need that in order for Excel to solve this. Okay? And then obviously it's less than or equal to, and then the constraint itself is this number. Okay? Now, the reason I'm making such a big deal out of all this is because this number here, these numbers here in column H, they can't change. They are set in stone by the constraints that we had. right? But see, these cells can change. And these are the cells that Excel is changing to see what your choice variables should be. Okay? So hit OK. That was our first constraint. We have to add another one. So just do that. There. And then, of course, I have my third constraint. Like that. And hit OK. All right. Now, I know that I've put all three of these constraints in. Okay? I'm actually going to delete them. Only because I want to show you another way to do this. Now, this next way, it's super fast, but you know, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, then don't do it this way. But I do want to show you a shortcut here. So I could just go here to add, and you can actually highlight all three of these, just so long as these are the same, right? Because I can highlight F6 to F8, and then here, just highlight these three cells, right? And then voila, I'm done. So that, you know, that just makes it quicker and easier. But you do have to pay attention, you know, make sure that all your constraints here are all of the same symbol, right? Less than or equal to. Okay, then we check this box. Make unconstrained variables non-negative. That is this constraint right here. Checking this box makes sure that your choice variables are non-negative. All right, so you don't have to input that constraint in here. And then we go down here, we use simplex LP. The LP stands for linear programming, right? So highlight that, and then just hit solve. And this will show up on the other screen. So when you hit solve, you're going to see something like this. And, you know, for now, I'm just going to say keep the solver solution. In fact, I can show you. There is the solver solution. If you remember, before I hit OK, this was a 2 and this was a 3. Excel has just solved it for 6 and 8. And if you'll go back to video 2, this is the solution that I found graphically with 6 and 8. So I'll just hit OK. And there, so, sorry. There is my 110. Hopefully you guys remember this is exactly the answer that I got in video 2. Wait, sorry. Okay, I found the optimal solution was 6, 8, and that gave me a maximum profit of 110. And then, of course, what Excel is doing here is saying, look, given this solution, we only used 6 units of the first constraint. We used all 8 units of the second constraint, and we used all 14 units of the third constraint. Okay? Now, in week 2, we're going to come back and, you know, take a look at, well, what does all this mean, right? There's actually a lot of interesting things that we can learn from these constraints. But for now, for this week, I just want you to be able to solve these problems. And so there, this is exactly how you would solve a maximization problem. All right? So we've got 2 more videos. The next one, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to solve that min problem. And then finally, I'm going to show you what happens to Excel when there is not, you know, when there's not a unique solution. So I'll solve that third problem. All right? Well, that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one.